Free. Whoa, 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 whoa. I'm Rodd Duff from Insights and Straight Talk. And with that, folks, I am out. Oh, that's not the one I wanted to do, but oh well. If you're a business owner, an entrepreneur, or a professional who already feels like you're doing everything, believe me, I know that feeling. The work, the emails, the marketing, the posts, the follow-ups. Tonight is a conversation for you. Because somewhere along the way, content stopped being a connection, and it started feeling more like another full-time job, right? And here's the quiet truth most people won't say out loud. You don't actually need more content, right? You need better leverage. Welcome to Insights and Straight Talk with Rodd Duff and producer Barbie, a show made possible by community support and partners who believe honest conversations still matter. This program exists because of people and organizations who choose to invest in clarity over noise, including our national and our local sponsors. Now, for instance, the Mangum City Library, sitting right here, the Regeneration School Project, Voices at the Table, innovation partners like Leaf Labs. Those folks are awesome. These are not logo placements. These are values placements. Now, let me ask you something honestly. How many great ideas have you had that never made it past the head? How many insights, lessons, or stories could help someone else? But they got buried under, I'll do that later, or I don't have time, or I don't even know where to get started. That gap between what you know and what the world hears is where most people, hold on, I just turned on my sound. Where was I? Is where most small brands, well, that's where they quietly stall. And that's why today's guest matters. Jon Goehring has been telling stories for a living since way back in college, not as at a theory level, not from the sidelines, but inside the real machinery of media. What am I talking about? Radio, podcasting, right? Voiceover, teaching, building a business. A business. A business helping other businesses figure out how to actually be heard. And what Jon figured out long before content repurposing became a buzzword is something most business owners still miss today. Your voice is not a liability, folks. It's an asset. Audio isn't extra. It's foundational. Because when someone hears your voice, not a headline, not a caption, not a optimized phrase, an algorithm, but your voice, you know what happens? Trust forms faster and connection lasts longer. Authority feels human, right? Most people think podcasting means more work, more equipment, more pressure, more chaos. You know what? Jon flipped that equation. What if one conversation, this one, could fuel weeks of content? What if showing up honestly replaced chasing platforms? What if consistency came from rhythm, not burnout? That mindset is exactly why sponsors and supporters align with this show, because Insights and Straight Talk isn't built on hype. It's built on usefulness. Our sponsors don't fund talking points. They fund conversations that help families, professionals, and communities think more clearly, especially in a time when clarity feels scarce. Right now, And that matters right now because we're living in a moment where everyone is talking. Very few are being heard. I got to quit doing that. I keep turning on hold on. Where no one's being heard, where noise is rewarded, depth is rare, and speed replaces wisdom. Yet people are starving for real connection. They want to hear someone who's lived it, built it, maybe failed, adjusted, and kept going. Jon brings that perspective, not as motivation, but as craft. With an academic rigor from the Newhouse School at Syracuse, combine that with real-world experience, helping hundreds of brands, he understands both how stories work and why they matter. So today's conversation isn't about tricks or trends. It's about sustainability. How do I build a brand that doesn't depend on exhaustion? How do I show up consistently without losing my life in the process? How do you turn lived experience into something that serves others and still serves you? And before we go any further, let me say this plainly. If you value these conversations, if you believe independent media, community, rooted education, and honest dialogue still matter, the simplest way to support this work is by subscribing on our Substack, insightstraighttalk.substack.com. Your support keeps the lights on, it keeps the mics live, and it funds projects like Voices at the Table and the Regeneration School project right here in Mangum. And it helps us scale these ideas beyond one town, no algorithms, no scripts, okay? Just real conversations supported by people who care. So whether you're watching live right now, listening later, or catching a clip down the road, please engage. Drop your questions, join the dialogue, support the work. Support it if you're able, please. This is Insights and Straight Talk with producer Barbie. She's keeping us grounded, and today we're talking about voice, leverage, and what it really means to make your brand unmissable. With that, I want to welcome, I almost exited there. Welcome, Jon, to the conversation.
Rodd, I don't know how I can possibly live up to that. You said it all right there, but I'm excited to be here and to hopefully shed some light for the audience on podcasting, content creation, and how they can amplify their brand through the power of content.
I'll tell you what, we have, we are just getting started here. I'm surprised we don't have anybody on board yet. That's kind of shocking. But with that said, I'm really interested in this conversation myself. So why don't we start where we were talking about back in the green room and see where we go from there.
Sounds good. Yeah. Well, again, thanks for having me. I'm Jon Goehring, founder of Story Trust Media. I believe that your stories build trust, and that trust, like you mentioned in the open, that drives results. Trust is the most important measure of success in business, right? Everybody's chasing the revenue, and that's ultimately, you know, what you're looking for, but trust drives that revenue. You don't buy from someone you don't trust, right? So that's why I built this brand. I started, you mentioned my college radio days. When I walked in as an 18-year-old, before I had even took a class at the college I went to, I fell in love with radio and fell in love with the idea of,
oh my God, I can hear it in your voice right now. I can hear the radio coming through. Go ahead. But I love voice. So go.
It's powerful, isn't it? And I fell in love with it because it was all about sharing stories, and I tried a little bit of everything. That's the beauty of college. And as an aside, I always encourage, if there's any students on here or any young people going to school, try everything, right? And in college, that's what I did. I did play-by-play for football. I did some on-air personality work. I did commercial production, all of that led to learning a lot of skills, most importantly, but also got me a career opportunity at local radio stations here in Rochester. I worked there for several years, kind of saw the writing on the wall when it comes to traditional radio. I don't know if you listen to FM, AM, FM radio. Those stations are unfortunately taking a big hit because of the rise of digital content and podcasting. So I ended up leaving that, and though I still do some contracting work for them and starting my own business, Story Trust Media, which focuses on podcast content creation, because like Rodd said, I totally believe in the power of voice and how it can build trust through the stories you tell, and how that trust can drive results for your brand. And I thank you again, Rodd. I really appreciate the opportunity to be on.
Oh my God.
What did you do
I'm
there?
off.
I was waiting.
I am off today. I am off. I know you set me up perfectly, and I started talking and didn't realize I was still in the green room. I'm chatting away to you, and then I'm like, I see the look on your face. I'm like, oh Jesus Christ, what did
like,
I do?
uh-oh, did we lose you? I guess it's my show now. I gotta run this whole
Yeah,
thing.
you're gonna take it over there, brother. What I was saying is I totally get the whole storytelling and the voice and that connection. As a matter of fact, I'm trying to hook up with a local AM radio, radio station here in Greer County that'll run this site simultaneously, because like I said, we do Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram. But I would love, and I write the column in the Substack, and it all kind of meshes, right? It kind of, that message continues on. But I would love to bring a radio station into that. That would just be beautiful. Great story you had there. What kind of, I said I wanted to kind of get into a little bit of your background, as well as those services, because honestly, I'm also selfishly interested in what we're doing, and kind of base our conversation off of that grounding point. Sound fair?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So Story Trust Media, we talked about a little bit about my background. When I started Story Trust Media, I knew podcasting was the future, right? And the podcasting space, there were already a lot of podcasts, but not nearly as many as there are today. There's 4.4 million podcasts out there today. Many of them are
really?
Yeah, 4.4 million.
Wow.
Can you believe that?
Wow.
The problem is less than half of them have reached 10 episodes. So I'd say you're 400. What? You're doing pretty well.
You right now, this one right now is episode number 450. 450 episodes. Congrats. That's
a milestone. Congratulations to you.
It is a milestone.
One of them. You've been here for all of them. So
every single one of them.
Well,
but you know what? It's also very fun to do. You know, I know in the opening, people have, and I hear this periodically, or actually quite a bit. I hear that, you know, as far as, you know, it's anxiety. There's a lot of work to do and so forth and so on. But, you know, I built a machinery business over 30 years, and producer Barbie always tells me I did that out of ego, because I was building this business. We had 30, 40 people plus other contract workers and this and that going on. But I'm doing out of love. I mean, this I really enjoy doing. So it's a labor of love, but it's not labor. It's really, actually, I'll contradict my own words. It's actually very fun to do, at least for me.
Fun labor. Imagine that. It's possible.
But what's the old saying? Find what you love and call it work.
Yeah.
Doing this actually drove me away from the machinery business, because I did some of these when I was doing that.
Well, there you go. And you impact so many lives too. That's the power of podcasting is, no matter what the topic, you find a niche, you find an audience who can value from your content. That's the number one. I don't know if we were going to get into the mistakes that podcasters, often aspiring podcasters and content creators make. But
100%.
Number one, in my opinion, is making it all about them, not actually looking for the value that they can provide someone else. So you doing this
What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that? All about them. I get the concept, but what do you mean by that? Good point.
If I was going to make my show all about me, it would be totally self-serving. So if I were you, Rodd, I would be talking all about, my past, and, you mentioned it, which was important because it was in context, but you would make it all about the not only the lessons that you learned that other people can take away from, but how successful you were. You have to mention that because it builds up your ego. You want to get as many people to subscribe to the Substack as possible and talk about that all the time. And it's a mindset shift to go the opposite direction. A lot of times with business, like when you start a business, people, aspiring entrepreneurs who struggle often think, well, this is a great idea because I think it's a cool thing to do. I want to make this widget or this gadget. And because I want to do that, therefore I'm going to go into business to do it. But they don't test the market, right? Isn't that a big mistake that business owners, they don't test the market and they go out with this idea because they think it's great and they think it's cool and they think it'd be fun to do this for a living.
That's all this time, all this money into it. Go ahead.
It fails because they don't test, they don't see if that's a problem that actually needs to be solved in the marketplace.
Yeah. Ooh.
So
that's a big one right there.
Why is podcasting any different?
Same thing.
What's the problem that your show is solving? That's like the number one mistake that I see people go in. They're thinking, well, I want to talk about this. I want to tell stories about me traveling to foreign places and making friends. Okay. Do people want to hear that? Maybe. I don't know. Maybe you're providing maybe there's an entertainment value. Maybe there's certain tips and tricks that you can pass along the way. But that's the number one mistake people make. They don't think of it from a listener perspective.
And the people that are doing that, it's a very small, the successful ones that are doing that don't have, 3 likes and 1 view or something like that. But you notice the ones that are, they either have a quirk or they're very hot young ladies or something like that. There's some sort of thing that they're catching. It's not just them going to those locations. But you make a great point. What problem am I going to solve? That's awesome. That's a great point. And this is a business. You're right.
You have to think about it the same way because
it is a business.
About it, you have to start the opposite because you think about, what content would I consume? I don't know. What podcasts do you listen to? Some people love true crime. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you like it? You're a big true crime fan?
I'm not a big true crime. I'm okay. Yeah, I watch some crime, but they're very popular. When I was doing some research, true crime is big, man. I was stunned by that. There's several, by the way, late start, weird, but we've got almost 300 people on now.
Oh, wow. Well, hello.
Yeah. Tell hello to everybody, by the way. Let's not be rude to them.
Yeah,
even though you were rude and coming late.
What are you talking about?
Them.
Oh, exactly. I was like, I think
my audience and I, you'll see, and you've probably seen it at some shows. They're very active. They're very obnoxious. Like if I'm late, that's probably why they probably left and boycotted me for a minute or something.
Because we were late.
Yeah, exactly. I've actually had people come on and say, "Hey, look, Rodd, I had to go back and refill my coffee twice for you to show up. Don't do that anymore, please." But and it's right. It's their time. I mean,
fair enough.
They're here for a reason because they want to hear about their podcast, right? About how that business gets grown, and they're here for a reason. So easy, folks out there. But in the same respect, it is their time. They're spending I didn't ask you, do you have a hard stop?
No, not at all. This is okay. What I got for the day.
Okay, beautiful. Not that we'll go forever, but I told you we've gone as many as 3 hours before with, a big, huge, gigantic audience, but usually about an hour and a half ish, somewhere.
Sounds good to me. I'm here for it. I love talking about this stuff.
So where were we? I got sidetracked there.
Well, what you were saying actually just like really fits with what we were talking about too. You're talking about the audience. This is the audience's time, right? So if I create content and I'm putting it out there and I just think about me, what that content does for me. It strokes my ego. It's all about me. Now, all of a sudden,
there you go.
like, but no, what's the purpose of that content? You always have to think of it from the opposite perspective. What problem does this solve? What value am I providing to the audience?
Let me ask you this. I don't usually go into questions this quick, but since they popped on here, Jeffrey's got a really good question that I wanted to get into because it just fits right now. How can a beginner start using audio as a content engine without overcomplicating it? And I know that question. That's why I wanted to hit it right away, because I do that exact same thing all the time. So you're the expert. Take some time, spell that out for us, would you? We need to know these things. Thank you, Jeffrey.
Yeah, thank you, Jeffrey. And there's two big mistakes. One of them being having to have all the right things in place before starting. That's the worst mistake, right? It's like, well, but I can't start creating content because I don't have the video camera that I want. I don't have the microphone that I want. You got, where is it? Right here. You got a cell phone, right? There's a camera, there's a microphone and a camera on that. You don't even need to start by showing.
And they're good these days.
Scary good. Like, I paid like $500 for this thing because I've done some voiceover, some audiobooks. You've probably done the same, right? Like, and it's like, why did I do that? But whatever. that's a sidetrack. But still, no. Get started. That's the first thing. So starting your podcast is super easy. You hit record. You start talking about whatever it is that's relevant to your brand or relevant to your passion. Again, with the audience in mind, what are they going to get value from? Maybe it's a 10-minute, 15-minute episode. It's a monologue. You're just talking. Leave mistakes in. Just have a casual conversation like Rodd and I are doing, because the harsh and the sad reality is there's probably not a lot of people who are going to be checking out your first episode anyway. But once you start, you build momentum, you build a content library, you set up something called an RSS feed. You put that out on the internet, and then at least your content has a hub. It has a place to live. And from there,
this is one of those places that I'm going to stop you there.
Sure.
I know the term, and I know kind of what it relates to, and I do know a lot of things, but I'm sure there's people out there as well as myself, specifically RRS feed. What does that mean? And build on the message. I got a couple things I got to check out on these messages.
Yes, please. An RSS feed. It actually is a syndicator for a podcast. So a show like this or any of the podcasts that you see online, they are part of what's called an RSS feed. So something that shoots your podcasts out to platforms like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, iHeartRadio, etc. And when you set up an RSS feed, which you can do on a whole slew of websites you've probably heard if you're in the podcasting world, of like RSS.com or Buzzsprout or all of these different hosts. It doesn't matter which one you use. Set up a free account, create your own RSS feed. Maybe put together a quick graphic in Canva with photo of you and, title of your show, whatever it is, and just start recording audio. It doesn't have to be clean. It doesn't have to be super perfect. You'll get there later, and we'll get to that. That's mistake number 2, is not, elevating from the beginner state, even when you're 100, 200 episodes in, not investing in equipment, just kind of resting on your laurels. You'll get there. But for now, the most important thing is to just start. Once you have that content created, you start to change your identity. I'm a podcaster.
Let me jump in on that subject as well. And yeah, you are a podcaster, and you could see the comfort level and here in our conversation back and forth, the comfort level. But I told you when in the first couple of shows where you see producer Barbie and or hear her, I was trying to figure out how to say 20 minutes of stuff. I think a lot of the reasons, well, one, I think people get concerned about being in front of a camera. I mean, that's a thing. And two, what if I make a mistake during the show? But starting off from wherever you are to where you continue to grow, and then we'll get into the second problem that people have. We should continue that line. But just at this point, on point 1, getting started, because I was kind of scared to get started. Now I'm an outgoing person. I've been sales marketing all my life. And like I said, when I was doing the machinery business, I did interviews of industry leaders a couple of times. Boy, that was nerve-wracking. Our first commercial was nerve-wracking, and that was recorded, that they did edits.
Yeah.
So I get that. But you got to start. That first step, it's what I saw in a movie once. 8 seconds of incredible courage. Everything else opens up from there, because
You're
then
right.
you become authentic. If you know, they're going to see it though later. You know what? Okay, I've got all of those on there, and they're part of. That's what developed the show. That style. That's. I eventually decided, you know what? Aesthetics aren't our thing, and I don't want it to be. It's a conversation. We're just two buddies at a friend's house.
Yeah.
So go on with what you're saying, but I can totally attest, because I've been there. And if anybody out there's listening, and I'm not the expert, I'm just adding to what John's saying here. But if anybody else out there's listening, you got to understand, it doesn't matter what you did before. You got to do that to get here. Not that we're anywhere, not that this show is anywhere, but to get to that point and expand on what you're talking about. Where you're going to get to, what you're getting to, what's going on. I got a couple of other questions to add
Can I
later,
tell?
but let's stay on this.
A quick story first, just to piggyback off of what you're saying. Not many people know this about me, so this is going to be one of the first things. You know, we're going to be close, like right off the bat. Not many people know this about me, except for some.
We're recording this, right? Also, it's going live, but it's recorded. This is going to be recorded.
My wife doesn't live.
Okay. Let's do it.
All right.
Talk to me, brother.
Yeah, you said that, you know, I look comfortable and all that, and I appreciate. Thank you for the compliment.
Very much.
It was May of 8th grade. Rough time. Okay.
I got one of these.
May of 8th grade in social studies class. I was doing my first ever solo presentation in front of anybody. I believe that as kids in school, like, you got to learn how to public present. That's really important. It took me until May of 8th grade to finally have an assignment to do that. I did not sleep the night before. I went to the bathroom just before it was my turn to talk, vomited all over the place. Went back into the room, shaking like a leaf. People are starting to giggle, chuckle in the corner, laughing like, who's this moron? Who's this guy? And I delivered a god awful presentation the first time I ever did it. Nobody realizes that people who are most comfortable in front of cameras and on microphones, they went through that too. You talked about that, the concept of 8 seconds, right? And this is actually biological. And I don't know the human body super well, but I do know that the stress response is something that is a real physical reaction that we have. But 100%. The nervous, it doesn't last forever. It cannot. It is physically impossible to be in that heightened state of anxiety forever. So if you just keep doing it, the more you do it, the more comfortable you're going to get at it. And that's just like cliche ever. Oh yeah, the more you do it, the more you're going to get comfortable at it. It's what everybody says, but it's true, because the stress response does not last forever.
You know why everybody says it? Because it's 100% true.
That's right. Yeah. And then the beautiful thing is,
go ahead.
When you're done, when you've finally reached that point where you feel comfortable and you're through that point, the amount of satisfaction that you get from overcoming one of your greatest fears, because public speaking is often said to be feared more than death. It's one of the greatest. I think it's
number one.
Is it number one? I thought it was up there.
I think it's number one. It's in the top 5 for sure.
The satisfaction is the greater the fear that you overcome, awesome. The greater the satisfaction you'll get from overcoming it. So doing that alone is worth, and that's only one kind of side story. So go ahead, Rodd. I didn't mean to interject that.
No. Please, I was going to have you go on, but since you gave me a break, I'm going to interject my own story, because mine's later in life. My first real sales job was with Minolta Business Systems. Okay. Minolta copiers, you've heard of them?
Yes.
Okay. So they used to do word processors, fax machines. This is back in the 80s. One of my first my first sales job. And so I was a salesperson, right? I have a sales job. It's out in Simi Valley, California. And in the training program for this sales, because I was 20s, early 30s, maybe late 20s, newly married, responsible and all that stuff. And during the training program, we had to, towards the end, we had to do a presentation. They sold word processors, and I already said that, fax machines and copiers. Yeah. We had to present the equipment. We had to do a presentation. And they were filming it in front of the people we're in the class with. My very first ever that kind of thing. I literally sweated so hard it came through my shirt, like I was dripping sweat. My back, down the middle of your back, that.
Oh streak. Yeah. Oh.
And these are my associates. I ended up, getting comfortable after a while. But I mean, you're right, absolutely. That first time, that second time, that 10th time, but now, and it's a weird thing. I hate reading public speaking. I'm not good at that because I'm afraid I'm going to miss a word. So that's why I do the live thing too.
May as well, right?
There's some lessons there somewhere.
There are, and that's the beauty of going live is that, like, sorry, you'll just screw up. Like if you screw up, you got to move past it. And that's the other thing, a big key that a lot of podcasters have a hard time with when they're just starting out is, well, what if I screw up? Well, you don't have to go live your first show. You probably shouldn't. And let's be honest, most of the clients I work with still don't do a live show. And that's because they want to make sure that they
get the edits and they do all that.
Yeah, they want it.
Do you know a percentage? I'm curious. Because a lot of people don't know we go live. It's one of the reasons I have trouble with timing. Thank you for showing up early, but usually people show up right at the time because, oh, this is live. I'm like, I got to get the show better known just so the guests know that it's live.
Yeah. Really important.
What's the percentage? Or is there? Do you know?
I'm not sure exactly about the percentage. I
know it's small.
My clients are 90+% recorded. I'll tell you that for what, small sample size, but that's my clients. I think a live show like this is underappreciated because of the live engagement, like all the great questions that we're getting here.
See all the questions? Look at this.
I need new glasses.
Let me scroll it up and oh, you can only. Well, no, I'll click them on the screen. Like for instance, no, I want to skip that one. Hold on. You already answered this, Damien. You already answered this, but here's obviously somebody who's like, oh, okay, what equipment do I need? What without over investing. And like you said, you could literally use your phone, but can you spend a minute right on that and just build out what you were already talking about?
Yes. Use your phone to start if you don't want to invest in any equipment, because quite honestly, a lot of people think
or laptop.
Yes.
What about laptop versus phone?
Internal microphone on a laptop. If it's a Mac, especially Macs. I'm not a Mac person. I actually don't personally use Macs, but Macs
I don't like Mac.
You don't like Macs either? Mac.
No, my producer Barbie is a Mac all the way. And about 30 years ago, I jumped over to whatever.
Windows PC.
Windows, yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
The other one.
It's just bad. I don't know. Especially the phones, because the Mac phone, the OS is very simplified. It's, you can't do much with it. It's not very smart, although it's brilliant because let's face it, Mac fucking blew it up. I mean, and they got great stuff and production and all that's way better. I agree.
Yeah. And so that's, if you're looking for an internal microphone, a lot of people waste money on microphones in the like $40 to $80 range, the ones where you just plug them into your USB. Here's the biggest key with a microphone. Does it require an external connection? If it requires an external box to connect it to, we call that an interface in audio, then it's going to be a higher quality microphone. If you're just plugging it into your computer and plugging it and playing with it, it's from my experience, they're not as high quality. So the XLR connection, in fact, I can show it right here. The XLR connection, the little 3 dots right here. You'll be looking for 3 dots if you could see that. That's what you're looking for. Yep, you have a Road, exactly, an NT1 or whatever it is.
Mine plugs into the camera, which plugs into a switch box, ATM Mini Pro. I really love that.
Okay, yeah, that's I haven't heard of that box in particular, but that's exactly what you want. That processes the audio, and that's the key to eliminating background noise, etc. So all that to say, all or nothing. Some people think it's just a mindset of, well, I have to invest because, like, I don't know, like I
Good
won't be
point.
legit if I don't. But you don't. You really don't have to invest. In fact, better to not spend anything and use your internal microphone than spend $50 on a crappy mic that actually doesn't even sound as good as your phone or your laptop's internal mic. So, audio quality in podcasting, not the super most important thing. You have to be able to be heard. You don't want to be distracting. That's the important thing. You don't want to be that guy who's
Ooh,
got like bad audio. You don't want to distract from the conversation. Now, if you're recording an
okay, that makes
audiobook,
sense.
an audiobook or something, higher quality than that, yes, you'll want a higher quality microphone. But for podcasting and just getting started out, use what you have. If you don't have a budget, use what you have, and then only invest when you're truly ready to invest in something worth investing in. And that would be a mic with an XLR connection, a camera that has at least 1080p capability, if not 4K. That's what you're looking for. Go all or nothing. That's my suggestion.
That's an excellent point, because there is some investment when you get to a point. I did it the opposite way, and which was a bad way to do it, but I did it because I had a machinery business that I used this within for the marketing of, and eventually that stole away me from the machinery business, but it. Oh, hold on. Before I talk, I wanted to use that to bring in Bradley's thing here. But I made Bradley a promise like freaking year ago. Every once in a while he shows up, just every once in a while. But he's got a cool name, so I remember it. And so I promised him. I said, Bradley, anytime I see you on here, I'm going to give you a shout out. Bradley Pomp, shout out. Great comment, by the way. Why don't you read this one? You can see that, right?
Bradley Pomp. Thank you, Bradley, for checking in. He says, love this conversation. Audio really does build deeper trust. And I couldn't agree
Right?
more with you, Bradley, or Brad, whatever you go by.
Yeah, I always call him Bradley. So I want to go back now to why don't you go on to your there were another couple of points, because there's a couple of them I want to adjust in here so that they match up a little better. Why don't you we've gotten through the mistakes that are made.
Yes.
Are many. And
yes.
we kind of covered the early couple of mistakes. But let's continue to build on that, and then I also want to get a little bit more into what you do. And some of the people here are asking, so they're going to help us do that. How does this conversation today translate into somebody giving you a call because why?
Yeah.
That's at some point I want to get to that. And by the way, before the end of the show, on the right side, you got a private chat box there. You see that?
Yes.
At some point before the end of the show, which is, oh my God, it's already been 40 minutes. Can you believe that?
Crazy.
We got almost 400 people on. But it's gone by really fast. But put in there your contact information, because like we talk about, a minute after the show closes, a year after it, a month, whatever, somebody's going to say, hey, God, I wish I would have been able to ask Jon this. Well, get in contact with Jon this way.
Yeah, please do. Yeah, would love to. I will do that. When you're talking, how's that?
Perfect. That'll work out just perfect. I'm going to experiment on something right now, just as a test. Click it.
Click it?
Supposedly, I just was, we talked about, and I'm not a sponsor, StreamYard is not a sponsor. Some of these things I've talked about are not sponsors, but I'm bringing them up because I did a course earlier today, and supposedly their new AI clips where I'd be doing advertising. All I got to do is say, click it, and 30 seconds earlier to go back and I'll click that out and I'll be able to use it as an AI clip.
Wow. That's cool.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
That
All
would
right,
save
now
me
go.
so much time.
Yeah,
Wow.
oh, big time. Big time. Yeah, they already have AI clips. I've started using them because, with sponsors and that, we've got to do more and more stuff,
Yep.
which is good because it's spreading the word. And that's what we're here doing. We're solving a problem for the great American middle class. Click it.
That's right.
All right, now I'm going to see if I got 2 clicks back there somewhere. All
I
right,
hope it
we were
works.
talking. I hope it. Well, I know it'll work. I just don't know if I've set it up or not.
Yeah.
I was trying to get that through the seminar today, but I didn't have time to get to it because I wanted this conversation. I wanted to prepare for the most. So going with some of the additional mistakes that people that make when getting into podcasts, because I'd like to know too, because I guarantee you, I bet you I've made at least most of them or a bunch of them, right?
Well, that's what we call the ignorance tax, right? You got to pay your ignorance tax to learn those
It's a high
mistakes.
tax too. It
Yeah,
can be
it
a high
sure is.
tax if you don't have an expert that's helping you get around those things, right?
Yes, yes. And after 40-ish years on this planet, you've been able to, imagine how many mistakes you've been able to make. It's amazing. And after 27
Are
years
you
on this
going back
planet,
to trying? You're trying to call me 40 again?
I assumed you were, right?
Go on with the mistakes.
Okay.
I
Anyway,
love you, bro.
not to get sidetracked, right? So we like to put these mistakes into 2 different categories, right? There's the equipment mistakes. Already talked about 2 of them. Overcomplicating things before you start. And then that second mistake being later on, you've built a nice little following and you won't upgrade your equipment because you're resting on your laurels, what you've already done, right? So those are a couple equipment mistakes. One more equipment mistake to bring up is not bringing on the right tool, the right recording or editing tool. A lot of times people will use like Zoom, for example. Zoom is not a great podcast recorder when you're recording with guests because the audio only focuses on one speaker at a time. So if you're talking over each other, it's going to sound weird. You've probably been on those Zoom meetings where somebody says something and then somebody else says something and it's just awkward. You're like, wait, no, you go ahead. No, you go ahead. So you don't want that for a nice free flowing podcast discussion. So oftentimes the platform on which you record something like this, StreamYard, Riverside, Zencaster, and there's multiple other ones as well. That's what you want to be looking at to start creating your own podcast. As far as the mistakes, more leaning towards like the content mistakes, we already talked about you being the hero of your own show. You're not the hero, you're the guide. You're somebody who, yes, draws from your own experiences, tell stories, do all of those things as the host to help out the audience, but always keep the audience's pain points in mind. Right? Always keep them in mind. So that's another main mistake that I see is people making their show, like we talked about earlier, all about themselves.
Yeah, and I can see, it's funny because that should almost be, oh, I get that. But people don't necessarily have that mindset. I mean, the hardest part, boy, there's some great freaking questions coming up, dude, that I want to know about, like monetization questions and this one here, which we'll get to in a second. And there's it's a really good question. And something I wrestled with myself back and forth. And should I be a guest before I'm a host? I'll add that to Clyde's. And as a matter of fact, well, you know this, you use it too, Matchmaker FM.
Yes.
Yeah, somebody got back to me from, I don't know how, like September, and said, hey, we'd love to have you on the show. This is what it is. I'm like, yeah, no, I don't need, but I was trying to figure out, I had no idea. I knew business, I know sales. So I figured I could figure this out pretty good. Pretty easy. I mean, I built a business over 30 years, right? So I went into this not realizing this is a whole different industry. I got to figure out what my message is, what my product, right? That's the thing we're doing is a product, right?
Yeah.
If we're going to call it a business, it's a product. We are fixing what we are creating a solution for somebody. That's the product. So, so going through all that setup to Clive here, do you recommend solo podcasts or interview style shows for authority building? And do you, and I'll add to that, do you recommend going on other podcasts? And if you do, I'll raise my hand if they're interesting people like you are, Jon. Why don't you address Clive there for me? Would you?
Great question, Clive, and thank you for
It is.
asking that. There are really 3 different types of podcasts that I like to think about. One is a really underutilized type of podcast, and that is a podcast that someone starts just because they're curious about a topic. They want to learn. They want to get as much knowledge as possible. I was on a podcast a couple of weeks ago called How Do I Make It Big? I thought, I was like, well, wow, like good for me. I made it on that podcast. Wow. I was a compliment, right? But it was a 15-year-old kid interviewing
Wow.
successful people. I've never seen a 15-year-old kid start a podcast before. In that case, you want interviews. Obviously, you're looking to learn from as many people as you can. The second style is kind of the opposite, where you're really just looking to build authority as build your own personal brand. And for that, oftentimes in most industries, solo podcasts are the way to go. Now, solo podcasts usually should be shorter than interviews, right? You get sick of hearing the same person over and over and over again, right? You want those to be around the time of, say, an average commute, 25, 30-ish minutes. But those are good for building authority. The third type of podcast is my absolute favorite, and that is where you mix and maybe swap, maybe about 50-50, those interview style episodes and those solo episodes. And the value of that for the podcaster is that you get the best of both worlds. There's so many benefits of solo episodes because, well, you're establishing yourself as the expert in a field. So if you're looking to grow your brand and maybe, get results for your business through your podcast, people need to know who you are and need to like and trust you. And you can't get that as quickly in an interview style than with a solo. However, you want to mix those interview style shows in because you're not the expert on everything, and delivering that value to your audience. Again, it's not all about me. It's not all about feeding my ego. Delivering that value to your audience actually serves them better than you can serve them with just solo podcast episodes. And then the other benefit to those interview style shows is you magnify your audience if you do it right, by helping those guests that you have on, by sending them some clips, by getting them to promote your show too. And now all of a sudden you've grown your audience because you're borrowing their audience as well for the promotion of your show. And then you may get more people into your audience. So ultimately, if you're not sure what to do, I recommend starting a podcast. Have a guest, your first episode, and just have a conversation. Just be sitting around like Rodd and I are doing. That's it. Record it, post it. Will it suck? It might not, but it might. And if it does, that's okay. You've got momentum, and now you're going to build off of that.
Yeah. The other aspect of having a guest, I've actually had this a number of times, and it's kind of cool. At least in StreamYard, they can stream to their audience at the same time you're streaming to yours. So then you also get, and it's cool because the questions will come up from different, like sometimes I'll get people from Facebook or from X or something. Well, yeah, I've never got one from X. Instagram and Facebook, and those emblems will show up, so you know where the guest is asking the question from. So that's kind of cool to do as well. I do both. I have a Friday open mic. I think we talked about it real quick. That I do my own, and I review the others, and that's kind of cool too, because that kind of builds credibility, I think, in being able to live off of your episode. Like on Friday, your episode, I'll be reliving, so to speak.
Reliving. Wow.
Yeah, I'm a writer. I'm a poet. So I sometimes words are bigger than they necessarily had to be in that spot. But I'm going to call it reliving because it's fun.
I like that. You want to relive this? I'm honored.
It's good, huh? Yeah, I want to relive this not over and over again, but definitely relive it at least once or twice.
There you go.
But in there, I get to go through those episodes and then give my recap, and then build a story about, because usually the stories kind of blend along if you really look at them. different aspects of building a whole human experience, right?
Yes,
Um,
exactly.
Jennifer's got a great question here. And how do you help clients stay consistent with audio content? And that's kind of where I was just talking, because we do so many different subjects, and I've heard more and more about this, about, your brand being consistent, and your message. Now, my message is consistent up here because it's what empowers the great middle class. And guests like you come in and empower the great middle class. AI experts come in, but those are two different subjects. So how do am I not doing that? Do you follow where I'm going? I'm going to have you answer the question in alignment with my own personal situation. See how I get free advice out of these things?
Yeah, I love it. And I actually read that question in a different way too. So I wonder,
Okay.
we can address
Maybe.
both. Let's address
how are
both.
you reading it? How are you reading it?
I read it more as like, how do you stay consistent putting out episodes weekly or daily or whatever? Because so many people start a podcast and then but it could be either. I don't know. We'll have to bring Jennifer on and ask her. But
yeah, hey, ask her to repeat that if does she have any more? Yeah, go ahead. Wow, there's a lot of freaking questions.
Well, we can address both very quickly if you'd like. I would.
No, please spend some time on there. You said you're okay. We're at, oh wow, it's already an hour. My God. Go ahead and answer both aspects of that, because I'm curious.
Yeah, so the way you read it makes a lot of sense. A lot of people are like, I just want to talk about everything. Staying consistent. A lot of radio stations do this. They know who they're talking to, and what they do is they actually cut out a cardboard cutout. Maybe it's a little overkill, but I do some contracting work for an adult contemporary, like a soft rock station. Think like, I don't know, the Backstreet Boys, ain't nothing but right. They cut out this picture of like a 40-year-old woman who is like in that target market, right? And she's just creepily standing across from where the host sits at all times. And yes, it's creepy and weird, but what it does is it reminds you that, number one, you're talking to one person, because that's huge with content creation. Number two, who are you talking to? I'm talking to this lady. I'm not talking to the boys. I'm not talking to the boys. I'm not going to talk like, hey, dog, what's up? Like, I hope y'all are vibing today. Like, I'm not going to talk like that to this 40-year-old lady. I'm going to talk kind of like I talk to my mom or my older sister or whatever the case is. So know who you're talking to. That's how you stay consistent. If you're talking to entrepreneurs, talk in the language that they talk. So it's good to cover different topics, right? You don't want to stay in one niche. That's why you bring guests on from all over the place, right? But be consistent in who you're talking to, and that's how you build a consistent audience.
Ooh, that is good. That is, I great point. I'm going to put our audience is 33 to 60, just under 60, 75, 25 male to female.
Okay.
So that's kind of where it used to be 50-50, and then it went all the way down to 8% girls and that ladies, women, whatever. I'm sorry because we're living in that time.
Yeah.
I may have had the wrong pronoun.
Yeah.
Now it's starting to climb back up to being closer. We're getting notches every day, so we're pulling back in some of that female audience. But yeah, I'm kind of a older white guy. Well, not white necessarily. We stream all over the world. We've got 30% UK.
Okay.
Yeah, and Canada is pretty strong, and then obviously bulk is US. Little bit of Latin America, very not much there. But believe it or not, we've got Southeast Asia. We've got some good hits. And Sweden has got this. I've actually had one of them fly over here to meet me from Sweden.
You're kidding.
Her husband gave her a 50-year-old birthday present when I was living in Chicago, and we met in Chicago in downtown. Yeah, wow. They're crazy. Well, they're having a lot of issues out there. We communicate almost every day. They hit me up about this or that. There's a group of about 100 out there that they're my favorite little Swedish people. Sweden. It's kind of cool.
Beauty of podcasting. And I'm
Yeah.
talking to you from Oklahoma here. So you
Wait.
no, yeah, you're in Oklahoma, correct? I'm
Oh
in
yeah.
upstate New York.
You're in New York. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm gonna say, like,
Yeah.
are we
For a
actually
second, I
neighbors?
was going to say, wait a second. Hold on.
Are
Are
we down
you
the
are you
street?
broadcasting downstairs or something?
Oklahoma's not that big, so although it kind of
No, it's
is,
not.
but no.
No, no. No.
Um,
I've lived in California. Oklahoma's not
uh,
that big, but it's
I
right by
know.
Texas, which is really big, which is where
That's
my grandkids live.
hook 'em horns. Yeah. So
Right.
to just briefly address the other, interpretation of this question, because it's a big pain point for people. They're all gung ho
Yes.
about it. They're like, let's go. I got this podcast idea. I'm gonna do this every week, 3 times a week. I'm fired up to do my show. And they do it a couple times and it's really, really good. But then the burnout comes in and then, you think, do I have to do another episode? The content ideas run dry, all of those things, right? So how do you stay consistent with it? It's all about batching. And this is why most of my clients don't do live shows. And many people in general, they don't want to do live shows because they want
Correct.
to batch
That's the
record.
hardest part.
And
That's the
that's
hardest
why,
part.
because Rodd, you better be, you better be awake here at, what is it, 4 Central time. You better be on top of your game, mentally sharp. And if you're sick, I'm sorry, like, show must go on, right? So that's the difficult thing of a live show. And that's how I recommend at first. And that's why I don't usually recommend people to go live, at least at first. Stay consistent by batching. In fact, a client that I work with, he's like 6 weeks ahead. He's got like 6 weeks of content recorded. And that way there's no pressure. He can let that creativity flow, not from a needs-based place, not from a place of like, oh my God, I got to record something like because it goes out in 2 days, but from a let the creativity flow. And as a result, he creates higher quality content and he stays consistent, which already puts you in the top 25% of podcasts across the world.
Ooh.
If you can just stay consistent and release an episode once weekly, you're already in the top 25% of
I've heard
podcasts.
that. I've heard that that's the biggest thing is in that consistency. Yeah, and you're right. I did read that totally different. The consistency of having content, it's like and that's an algorithm thing, but
Yes,
also, I relate that part of it to my sales background, where in sales, I used to say, you're never going to get a sale unless you touch somebody.
Yep.
At least 9 times, 9 to 12 times is what the numbers kind of say. And touching could be an email, could be a phone call, could be a message left. It could be, hey, I saw this thing. I'm sending you a note. I thought you might like this. And in this case, it's touching that audience that you hear it once. Okay. Oh, I listened to him last week. It's a new one. It's an interesting topic. Let me see what that is. Maybe I didn't have time to watch it. Maybe I'll come back to it. But consistent. Okay. That's a whole different consistency. And that's huge. You're right.
They're both important though. I like what you said too, because that's really important to have people, consistently, talking to the same person and covering those topics that are valuable to the person. So I'm glad we were able to cover both angles of that.
And going back one question, and I want to get to Bradley's. I should have done Bradley. He made that earlier comment about great show, and then he had this question,
Okay,
which I'll get to in a second. But I was curious about the single or the dual. Do you think if somebody's doing a single subject, to me, they almost have to rehearse an entire episode, and because it's really, I mean, I've gotten to a point where I could almost not freelance, but whatever you call it, free, just off the hip,
off the cuff, yeah,
for an hour. But that's not easy to do.
No.
So to me, it seems like a little bit more work for just fill in that little aspect, that little tiny aspect, fill in that little aspect, if you would, that color between the layer, so that if you are doing your own show, what kind of prep stuff? See, here I have prep, but I think there's like 2 or 3 times more if you're doing it yourself, because honestly, audience, you take care of some of the prep. I just send out the information and you guys are asking, you're putting it into a question, which sometimes I even miss some of the stuff these guys pick up.
Yeah, I love it. I love what you do live here. As a solo show, it does take more preparation. The good news is
And what kind?
the
What
best.
kind?
Yeah, I would say bullet points are everything. You got to know what points you're going to drive home. You don't want to form sentences. You don't want to look like you're reading, because
Yeah.
then you may as well just read it. If I'm going to write something or have AI write something, I may as well just post it as a blog post and you can just read it. You don't need to hear me read it, right? You can read faster than you listen. But having bullet points as little note reminders, okay? Maybe you write out the first sentence if you're nervous. That takes away nerves right away, as you have something to fall back on. But those
That's
bullet
what I
points,
do.
yes, and those bullet point reminders are not necessarily there to straitjacket you into a particular formula that you want to cover, but they're there to help you when you are like, oh my God, I'm screwed now. Like, I don't know where to take this next. Because what you'll find, and as you do this more, as you just said too, Rodd, like you can now do it for an hour off the cuff, right? Your ideas produce other ideas inside your own mind. So when you're talking about something,
Right.
all of a sudden that jogs something else. So you don't have to be married to those bullet points or married to a script. It does take more preparation. And I do suggest putting down bullet points as kind of like the safety net, and always have that phrase in mind that you can always use. Like I call it the emergency phrase, the fire alarm phrase, the whole like, oh crap, I just kind of hit a dead end and now where do I go?
What do I
Maybe,
say?
yeah, maybe the phrase is, and moving on to the next point or moving on to the next topic, you could pull that fire alarm, use that phrase, refer to your bullet point notes, and then boom, what's the next bullet point note that you have? And that's usually enough of a mental reset and enough time for you to kind of think about what you're going to say next. And then all of a sudden you're on into the next bullet point. And the reality is, hopefully, you're passionate about what you're doing your podcast on, and you're somewhat knowledgeable about it too if you're doing a solo show. So, you talk to me about, I don't know, ancient Greek mythology. I'm not going to have much to say, but if you talk to me about the Syracuse Orange, oh, like I could go on. Like, you're going to have to shut me up. All right. So
Yeah.
make sure that is a part of the preparation too, is make sure what you're talking about is something that sure you have some knowledge on, but most importantly, you have a passion about, and that will really help in your preparation too.
And it shows up probably in the energy instead of like, so the Syracuse is colored orange, and
Yeah.
the passion, obviously, when you're authentic, no matter where you are, that comes through. So the passion is that's a good point that you made right there.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Authenticity. You just struck one of the big buzzwords that people are sick of hearing, but you mentioned earlier that oftentimes when we get sick of hearing something, or when people say it a lot, it's because it's true. Your authentic self has never been more important than it is right now in a world of AI and automated communications. And sure, I can make an avatar, automate my voice, do whatever, get AI to produce some content for me, but people are seeking and thirsting for authentic communication. And that's the power of podcasting, is it allows you to communicate not just through written text, but through the voice, through visual seeing me. I have built, social psychologists will say that you and I today, Rodd, have built 100 times more trust spending an hour with these folks who are checking this out. 100 times. They've done studies on this. More trust than if somebody, say Bradley, read a book or read something and spent an hour reading what we wrote.
Wow, that makes sense.
100 times more trust. Why? I don't fully understand it. I'm not a social psychologist, but trust is built through the sound of our voices. Who do we trust most as a kid? Well, our mom, our dad, the people who we hear, the people who, sing us to sleep at night, and then the visual of our faces. You could be the ugliest person in North America like me, and the visual of my face will still build trust with you because you're seeing a real person.
Yeah, they well, and I from my sales business, back to that aspect of my life. Yeah, no, 100%, because well, the words that you use, let's talk about reading a book or an article or something, is only 8% of communication.
8%. Brilliant.
8%. The biggest part of communication is not just the sound of your voice, but the sound of your voice, the inflection. You can talk quieter and start to bring somebody in, or you can bring that volume back up, and you can lean into somebody, or you can lean back. That's where that interaction comes in. 100%. 8% is only the words. So when I saw that about what you were talking about, how important the storytelling is, and podcast sound ones, only the sound ones, that's bigger.
Yes,
because you're getting that. But this, to me, is the biggest.
Yes.
And so let's go to Bradley. I think you read it because you mentioned him in the comments you made a second ago. I don't have to shout him out again, but Bradley asked, what's the biggest mindset shift a business owner? And I think this is awesome because it's so true. And there is a shift that a business owner needs before starting a podcast. We're also going to be shifting back. I couldn't do this as well as I wanted to, but we're going to be shifting back to also monetizing your own podcast.
Yep.
And who knows, maybe a business owner is going to want to monetize his podcast. Kind of where I went with that, to be honest with you, because I started doing the podcast is what Bradley's talking about. He's got to be talking about that. I assume he's talking about that. I might be wrong, but okay. What mindset do I need? I'm going to do a podcast because it's building my business, and that's part of doing these podcasts too, right? From what So
absolutely,
I want to go both these ways. So help Bradley out here, would you, brother?
Two big mindset shifts for you, Bradley, to consider when you're a business owner, and rightfully so. You need to be thinking of everything needs to be perfect, right? Every interaction with your customer needs to be perfect. You need to deliver on all those promises you make and hopefully over deliver on those promises you make to customers. If you are a restaurant and you're serving a piece of chicken, it better be 145 degrees in the middle, right? And it better taste good. It better not get the customer, the client sick. So that is a useful, that's like the bare minimum, right? Hopefully it tastes good too, but that is a useful mindset to have as a business owner. In podcasting, perfection really is the enemy. You've seen how much here Rodd and I have stumbled and bumbled, and I'm getting over a cold, so I'm sniffling too. And you gotta edit things out when it's egregious, right? Like if I were to just I don't know, drop this microphone or do something utterly egregious, just strip in front of you here. There are times when editing is important, right? Don't get me wrong, but drop perfection. That's a big mindset shift that business owners need to make. Number two is ROI, because as business owners, and rightfully so, again, a helpful mindset is to be hell bent on ROI. If I'm spending an hour of my time doing A, is it getting me this result, or is B getting me more results than A, right? So what's the most profitable hour of your workday? That's a big mindset business owners have, as they should. But in podcasting, oftentimes the ROI is not in direct profit. And this will get into our monetization discussion too. Oftentimes it's in relationship equity, right? So I'm building a relationship with someone. I'm inviting them onto my podcast, providing them value by allowing them to borrow my audience for a little while to share their insight, their expertise. Like Rodd is providing me value by allowing me to borrow this wonderful audience, including Bradley and Jeffrey and all of you else, right? 400. So you're providing value to me. There is a value exchange there. And so what's your ROI? Well, I'm not going to pay you $500 just for doing that, as much as I would like to, Rodd, but I'm not going to immediately write you a check, right? But there is a value exchange there, and that ROI often comes back in a return favor in the relationships built, and then in the content created that builds trust with your audience. So that's a huge mindset shift. Is oftentimes, well, how much money am I making this hour? Well, you don't really know. You can't really measure everything, but the relationships that you build through podcasting and the fact that You can make it into a content creation engine that fuels your social media profiles, email newsletter, website for weeks, just based on one conversation. I'd say that's a pretty good bang for your buck, even if you can't put a dollar value on it. But business owners like to put dollar values on things, right? And so that's a mindset shift that you really should try.
Well, and I think you could even go this direction and shift it from an ROI into what is the return on this marketing, because that's what it becomes. I mean, in that aspect, if I'm a business owner, like I used to do, and the reason I did a podcast was to be able to use that as a presentation to my other customers, or like you said, flooding it on social, but you can also go back to it. And here's the thing now, with today's tools, marketing, by comparison, it costs next to nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I remember setting up marketing programs that had cost me $14,000, $30,000 to set up and go. And now those more effective marketing programs take a little bit of time, just like they did then, but less time. But they're also like fractions of a penny per click, per digit, per, you know, however you're doing that marketing, but it costs next to nothing. So yes, you're building that relationship, and over and over. I like to use Perel, and so on and so on and so on, at a hair commercial that back in the 70s or 80s or whatever. So, you know, building on that, I skipped a couple of questions that I'll come back to, folks. Hang on. Jeffrey had a great question here, but kind of building on the entrepreneur side. And then we're going to, I think, flip over to the monetizing of your own podcast business as well. We're on both sides of the track here, right? So little bit differences in those questions or answers being made. And I'm assuming I'm asking this right, because what mistakes do you see most entrepreneurs repeat with podcasting? So again, I think we're still in that marketing lane.
Yes. Well, I used to have a crappy old Santa Fe, Hyundai Santa Fe, got 17 miles to the gallon. It's my first vehicle, right?
Beast.
That's yeah. It wasn't the 4-wheel drive kind, but it's got 17 miles to the gallon. I got a not super sexy, but very reliable Toyota Corolla now that goes 37 miles to the gallon, sometimes more on highways. You know how much less I'm spending on gas?
Yeah.
And you're like,
a lot.
Why the hell are you bringing this up? That's what you're asking me. Right. Like, what does that have to do with anything? Well, it's because you get more bang for your buck on your podcast when you repurpose it into an entire content creation engine. And this is the mistake that I often see those entrepreneurs make. Is entrepreneurs, we're busy people, for one thing, really busy people. I get it. I'm with you. We are motivated people. We are idea people. Like, boy, we have new ideas every day, and we want to tear everything down and build everything back up in this new way that we think is going to be better, right? I'm teasing myself here while I'm at it, because I'm the same way. And if that strikes a nerve with you, you're probably an entrepreneur. So what the mistakes that we often repeat when it comes to podcasting is we don't allow it to take advantage of its full life cycle. We don't allow it to get its full gas mileage, so to speak. This 1 hour plus conversation now, it can turn into, like I just said before, probably 10 to 15 really high quality clips for social media, for YouTube shorts. It can turn into a blog post, an email newsletter, a graphic that can go out on social media. It can be repurposed into a longer form YouTube video. There are so many ways to repurpose this. And entrepreneurs make the mistake of having a conversation, a podcast. Good. It's great. You did it. It was fun. The audience learned a lot. And then just posting and ghosting. We're done. That's it. That's all I'm going to get out of it. That's like driving my Santa Fe and getting 17 miles per gallon. Use this episode, right? Use this to build more trust with your audience by putting out content more consistently. Develop a reputation with your audience that you're going to be visible every day, every whatever it is, up on social media. And when you do that, you build more familiarity, which is more trust, which drives more results. entrepreneurs, we want to dive into the next big thing. We're always trying to, chase that new shiny object, but follow through, do your due diligence, follow through with your podcast episodes and get the most gas mileage out of them.
Yeah. And before we go on, because we're kind of stepping back into my podcast, how do I monetize it? And when should I start thinking about that? Which I have been thinking about it for a year and a half, the day I started. But I just forgot my point. What were we talking about? I want to get to that because there was something there that I really wanted to get.
Extending the life cycle of your podcast, getting more gas mileage out of it. Then we're transitioning into monetization, and I see Don's question here.
So before monetization, on if you're going through social media, I wanted to jump back onto some of the things that you do. And I'm sorry, I'm not trying to make this a commercial for you, but I am asking because what does that look like? So we're doing this. Let's say we're doing this podcast, and I'm still running my my machinery business. We built machines and sent them all over the country. You're an industry expert, and we're going over this plastics process and the equipment that we use to do that. The shows, we've been talking for the last hour and 17 minutes, and we're going to be wrapping up after a moment or whatever. What does it look like now? That what is going to happen from your aspect? I called Jon up and say, Jon, okay, the one's ready. I just sent it over, or I uploaded it, or I downloaded it, or what's the process?
So I always who I work with is those people who are frustrated because they aren't getting the most out of their content, right? So they want to record a podcast and they want to have more content, right, from that podcast. The process then goes, okay, you've recorded it. Depending on the, who I work with, some clients I record live with them to help them with the technology. Some they just upload it to a little Dropbox that I have. And then I take that episode. First thing that's really important is get the transcript for it. You could do so much with the transcript. You can more easily identify clips that you want to take out. I take out however many clips sound good and may have the potential to go viral or build trust on social media. Then I create those videos, vertical format, square format, because depending on the different platform, the algorithms respond better to certain videos.
Like what we have here, StreamYard just started this. They call it Mars. Can you see? Do you have two? You have a horizontal and a vertical. Like that is what you're saying. You break it up depending on where it's going out. Is what
exactly, because YouTube. Gotcha. Longer form YouTube, they want that horizontal video. The shorts that we're seeing, which are going to continue to blow up, by the way, everybody's going to be doing YouTube shorts soon if they aren't already. Those are vertical. TikTok, vertical. LinkedIn, square. Or like they're different platforms, which is annoying, but true. Different platforms prefer different aspect ratios, we call them.
Is aspect ratio 16:9 or
exactly
another one 9:16 or whatever it is? But yes. Also, if you're holding your phone, doesn't that also show up differently, a different aspect? Like that's why StreamYard does it. And I don't know if it screws up the numbers, because now I have 2 episodes on StreamYard, which I don't like.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
So yeah. Splitting the views. I've actually had people say, which one do I go on to? But yeah. I thought it was all the same thing. But for phone usage, you're getting that one aspect ratio, and then for the laptop, you're getting this aspect ratio, right?
Exactly. And that's why we're seeing a lot of the vertical format taking off. Like YouTube is really prioritizing the vertical because they're noticing that people are more likely now to consume content on their phones. It used to be, 50-50. We're on our computers and we're on our phones. Now, especially with this younger generation, it's all on your phone. So that's where we're seeing more, TikTok, Instagram, those platforms. Vertical format is definitely the way to go. So when in doubt, produce vertical video. But that's part of what I do, is optimize those so that my clients are able to get the boost that they need in the algorithm to show up, right? Because because it's looking for that aspect ratio. And then
so you're taking their final product, however it came to you, you're taking that and optimizing it for YouTube in this case, like the horizontal, and then if it's going out to Instagram or TikTok or one of the others, then you have the vertical.
exactly, yes, and
Okay.
doing that with the short clips so that they can go in multiple places. Because again, we're trying to get the
True.
most
Short clip.
gas mileage for our episode. And then on top of that, usually I'll create for some clients a quote graphic where, you know, some people prefer, they see a video, they're scrolling right past it. They don't want to stop and watch videos. Some people like a static image. So I also create content just to mix it up so that there's different forms of content for the same episode where, you know, it's a picture of the guest with a quote over them that really hit home, like that one quote, that one takeaway. And then there's calls to action in the comments of, you know, check out the full episode here if it really stops the scroll and gets somebody's attention. And then some people still prefer to read. So I turn podcast episodes into blog posts too. Not the exact transcript, but using the content in there. And, you know, admittedly, I do use AI to help with this because this
You
is
feed it into AI,
exactly.
I assume, and then do a better polished version kind of thing, I think is what they call it.
Yes, exactly. You polish it up so it reads nice like an actual blog post. And then, you know, I don't just let AI totally do it. I make some manual changes as well. And boom, there you go. You got a blog, and then I produce an email newsletter too. So it goes for the client on their behalf to share with their audience. So here we go. One conversation that you have, but you didn't just set it and forget it and let it live on some dark corner of the internet on YouTube. Now it's everywhere. It's in front of people. People are like, oh, you talked to so-and-so. Cool. You now have clips that you send to the guests and say, hey, I really appreciate if you put this out on your social media too, because that would benefit you. It also benefit me, that kind of thing. So now we're getting more. That's how audiences really grow. People think they start a podcast and people will come. That just, unfortunately, with so many podcasts in the world, is not true. You have to be doing some very intentional things to be marketing your show if you actually want it to make some waves.
You know, it's funny you said that because I was thinking of that earlier today. I was walking my dogs around in the middle of the day. Go check out my dogs. Small town, so it's easy to do. But I was thinking about that. You know, this journey that I'm on, that I've been on, and still am on, and everybody in this conversation, it probably is on to some degree. And I that exact thing, build it and they will come. And I was thinking about that. And the only time I think that's ever happened in reality is the movie.
Yeah. Which isn't reality. Yeah. It's ironic.
Yeah. You don't just build it, man. You got to build it. Yes. But you got to do this other stuff as well. And you got to get the touches. So how many, I mean, I guess there's different programs. We'll talk about that later, but I'm assuming you do you said this is a couple weeks of content filled out of a single show.
Yes. Yeah, it can be up to. Most of my
specific.
Oh,
sorry. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I keep cutting you off, Rod. Most of my clients are 1 week because they release every week. So we just make 1 week worth of content out of it, but it can be up to a couple. Yeah.
Okay. So I misunderstood that. So they're doing, okay. For a guy that does the show every day, how does that work?
Great question.
A lot of content out there. I bet you I'd blow up pretty quick, wouldn't I?
I think you would. If you've ever heard of Gary Vee, that's kind of what he does. Gary Vee is this, big influencer, marketing influencer, and he puts out stuff every single day, and not only every hour. Of course, he's got a team behind him doing all this stuff, and it's literally.
I would love to get to that point.
Hour, yeah, and it's amazing what he's doing, and it really goes to show that we all like to say, oh, quality over quantity, quality over quantity. To a certain extent, your quality can't be crap, but quantity is important. Like quantity, if your quality is up to where it needs to be, quantity is then important because you could release, one podcast episode a year, and it could be the best freaking episode you've ever done in your life. How are any more people going to actually see it? Not unless you intentionally promote it. Not any more people are going to see that than if it was a crappy episode.
because the algorithm looks for that.
Yes,
It
that's
looks
true
for
too.
consistency. I mean, they even tell you that. Like now that I'm doing so much, I'm getting, before when I was just on LinkedIn, let's say, just for selling my equipment and all that and talking to contents and doing all that. But now I'm like this somewhat content promoter, provider. And so you're getting all these information about, hey, this impression, this hit this many impressions, your consistency, keep consistency. They're giving you these tips, and because it helps them too, obviously.
Yes.
Trading value. So on that subject, Don, I think we're going to step back into entrepreneurship in a minute, but I do want to clip on a couple of these before it gets too late here. And don't forget, put in your contact information in there. Don says, how soon should podcasters think about monetization? Well, I've been doing this for 1.5 years, and I thought about it from before I was doing it. So when should I really start thinking about it? It's starting to happen. We're getting sponsors and all that, and Substacks, bunch of people are coming on. So, but seriously, all kidding aside, Don here has probably got some sort of podcast going. He's going, when should I start expecting some money out of this damn thing?
They say a good rule of thumb is 30,000 listeners, viewers, whatever per month. So if you have, 3 episodes a month, just to make the numbers even, you're looking for about 10,000 per video, per audio, whatever it is, combined on all the platforms, right? So a lot of people think that's a hell of a lot. How am I ever going to reach there? It doesn't mean you can't monetize it before. It just means you aren't going to make any serious money out of it. In fact, one of the best things that you can do when it comes to monetization, route A is, okay, build your audience to get it to 30,000, that key number 30,000, and then contact sponsors, and they'll ask you how big your audience is, and boom, you'll be in because the raw number of people that you're reaching. Route B, which I find to be a little bit more, first of all, rewarding and sustainable long term, is maybe you don't have that kind of audience, but you have a very niched audience. Because again, we cut out the cardboard of the person we're talking to. We're staying consistent with that audience member that we're talking to. And maybe I know of a podcaster who I work with who his entire podcast is for roofers, just roofers.
Oh, wow.
That's his whole, hey, what kinds of, equipment do you use, blah blah blah, like sharing stories about roofing, whatever it is. How do you talk with clients? It's just for roofers. Now he doesn't have 30,000 people listening to him. I don't know how many roofers there are in the world, maybe not 30,000, right? But there's a bunch, and it's niched enough where a company like a roofer CRM system,
gotcha,
all of a sudden now we have a more aligned promotion for the podcast. So the more niche your podcast can be, the better, because then it won't take nearly as large of an audience for you to get monetized. And then the other benefit to that is that now you have a sponsor, a commercial, so to speak, in the middle of your show or at the beginning or whatever, that actually could provide some value to your audience. Your audience isn't going, oh, it's another commercial, tune out. They're going, oh, that's interesting. That's actually talking to me. Because there's nothing like watching a YouTube video and all of a sudden, halfway through at the most random and totally inappropriate time, McDonald's pops up on the screen and you're like, okay, skip ad, right? So that actually, that strategy is, I like that strategy more. Sure, you can go to 30,000 and then get McDonald's to sponsor you for a fraction of a penny per view. You can go that route if you want, or you can go the route of build a very intentional audience, know who you're talking to, contact potential sponsors who are also talking to that audience, and then sell them a spot on your show that's directly talking to that audience. Now you're going to have a better bang for your buck. People are going to appreciate it more because it's not just an ad that they're trying to skip. And ultimately, you can potentially bring in more than one sponsor because you're talking to those very specific sponsors.
Yeah, and I'm just starting to get into this now, and I see where you're going, and maybe I should have been a roofer. You know what I should have done? I should have started the podcast back when I had the business and done podcasting for plastics industry. And
That's
then
brilliant.
that's that niche that you were talking about, isn't it?
Exactly. And that would be such a niched audience that maybe you bring on vendors and service providers. And now it's not so much about keeping it the same topic, it's about keeping it the same audience. So don't think too much about what you're talking about. Think more about who you're talking to. And if you filter all of that, all the topics that you cover through the audience that you're reaching, now you're going to have a consistent following being built. And this is where quality sometimes is better than quantity, right? Because you could have a million random ass people checking out your podcast, right? You don't even know who they are, right? But if you have, say, only 1,000 really, really connected people who care about the industry you're in and really get value from the content you're sharing, now
Right.
you really got something. I'd take that over a million random people any day.
I absolutely too. Same. As a matter of fact, at some point, I want to turn back to my plastics industry because we're doing huge, big numbers, and that's a what's called a warm lead, right? That's the warm lead.
Exactly.
So those are the two comparisons. Now Jennifer's asking a question here that's similar, very similar to, but a little bit different than what was asked earlier on, and I don't remember who asked the question, but this is back to pre-recorded or live. But she's talking about for engagement here. Now, when I first read it, I think I was making the same mistake earlier that I made in reading it in when engagement meeting our live audience. Engagement really meaning engagement from the work that you're doing from that podcast. How are you going to get the best engagement from that product? So I read it a few times. I learned my lesson from the first one.
There you go.
But so because live is obviously the best for engagement for questions, but what we really want is we want customers at the end of the day. So how do you tell Jennifer here as far as I'm guessing pre-recorded in this case?
In this case, yes. So live audiences do offer engagement in the sense, like you said, that there's, more people scrolling past and going, oh, wow, there's something about a live button on your feed that just is too interesting. And people check it out and are like, what are they talking about? They're actually live. This is kind of cool, right? But when it comes to engaging with your audience after the fact, you can build loyal audience members when you have a pre-recorded show, because not everybody can show up to your live segment or will even want to show up for your live segment every single day, right? Except maybe some of the audience members here. I'm not meaning to call any of you out. I'm sure you all show up to this program every day, right? But for a lot of people, having that podcast feed or having that YouTube channel feed and being able to binge these shows is often how a lot of content consumption happens. So that's why I would suggest for that kind of engagement, pre-recorded is good because now it's bingeable. And now you have people who can build that into it's a habit for people to show up to your Spotify feed or show up to your YouTube channel feed and be
right,
clicking on whatever it is, the newest episode that was uploaded. So live, you kind of have to hope that they happen to stumble upon it. And that's just not always the case.
Well, but there is that other aspect ratio, let's call it. I was saying that because it's cleaner. It's editable.
That's true too. Yeah.
So it's a cleaner, smoother, and maybe we didn't need that section in there when Rodd was talking about clip it. But the other side of that is you in live versus pre-recorded, are you getting the same engagement because it may have a different feel? Because you could still pick them up later. So there's the cleaner, meaning recorded. There's the vibe, I think, difference. So if you're looking at it that way, is there a difference?
I see what you're saying. I don't think there's much of a difference, to be honest, because I like to, especially with my clients, when it comes to pre-recorded discussions, you want to make them feel like they're live, right?
Yeah.
Yes, you do some editing, you tighten it up, you make it a little bit, you want to respect your audience's time, right? And if you go off on some big, long, bunny trail about something that isn't relevant, cut that out of respect for your audience's time.
Yeah.
So there's some of that, but at the same time, you want it to feel relaxed. You're not going to cut out every little or ah or like you ever see those shows where it's like jump cut, and you're like, this just too much. Like, you don't do that in real life. You don't sit next to somebody on the couch and they're jump cutting every 5 seconds. Like, so why do it? People want more real life in their
Matrix.
Content. Yeah, really scary stuff.
So Jeff Lamb here, I've been going through his stuff here. He's actually written a number of them. So he's got something going on here. Jeff, great show. Great. No, actually, you read this one. Go ahead. Read that one.
Jeff Lamb chimes in. Great show. Great video. Loving this live discussion. Almost as if he's putting in his vote for live.
He's like in live. And then go ahead and read. You were going to read this one, but this is one of a few different questions he has. I'm not going to get them all at the same time because there's a bunch in between, but he's hit on here a couple of different times. So
yeah, what's one?
Well, we've already read one of them, but go ahead.
We have. Okay, I don't remember, Jeff. I'm sorry. This one though, what's one system every podcaster should have from day one? Definitely have a follow-up, like just like in business, have a way to follow up with the guests that you've had on, because too often we have our guests on, end of the discussion, we both go our separate ways, and we never follow up and say, hey, here's the episode you were on, can you share this with your audience? Because that's such a big missed opportunity. I've never met a guest who isn't willing to share with their audience your show when they're on it. It's a win-win, right?
100%. Yeah,
you look good. Hey, I was on this show. That makes you look pretty good. So, and it's free content for them. They don't have to think about what to post that day. So, but so many podcasters don't follow up with their guests. And so have a system in place where you have, even if it's an automated email, nothing wrong with that, right? An in-person, like an actual personal touch point is even better, but have a follow-up system so that you don't lose track. So maybe it's just a simple spreadsheet of who you've followed up with.
What do you usually suggest for people?
As far as like how to do that?
A follow-up system.
Yes.
Yeah,
Google Sheets. It's as simple as that. I mean, you could use like a advanced CRM or whatever for your podcast guests, but I just use Google Sheets, and every line is a podcast episode, right? So you have, the status can be changed from scheduled to recorded to edited to posted or published to repurposed, and then the final step would be shared. So all of those little steps is like the workflow of a podcast episode. Make sure you follow through that whole lifespan of that podcast so that you can get it. Say you have a guest with a pretty big following on. If they share it to their audience, that magnifies your audience all the more because you're borrowing theirs. So follow through in Google Sheets or whatever system you use, just to make it totally clear, so you're not trying to remember off the top of it. Oh, did I send Joe the episode that I don't remember? Just have it all written down somewhere. That's a very valuable system.
Yeah, and people even ask you, and I get asked quite a bit. Hey, where can I find this? I want to put this on my network. So and then sometimes I'll get off different social medias. I'll get mentioned. Hey, was on Rodd Duff's at Insights and whatever. So I'll know it's going on, and then of course I'll comment on that. And then now you're going back and forth with even more, right? I mean, you're getting more out of that, and then you repost that with their post, right? Because they posted your show, and that's the kind of thing you're talking about there, isn't it?
Exactly. That's momentum. You're building momentum, and you're missing opportunities to do that if you don't stay in touch with people. It's just like in business. You
back
contact
to monetization.
Exactly.
Back to monetization, right?
Yeah, you contact someone for your business and they seem interested and you fall off the face of the earth because you forgot or you didn't have a system in place to follow up with them and say, "Hey, were you still interested?" Or, "Hey, saw this, thought it might." The amount of business that I've gotten from just staying in touch with people. In fact, I don't think I'd have a business if I didn't stay in touch with people, right? That's how the real magic is made. You build momentum through those relationships.
Yeah. And along the same line, Antony, I think.
Antoine? Antonio?
Antoine looks Italian.
It does. I love Italian names.
I love Italian. Not well, I love Italian food too, but I love Italy. How do busy business? This kind of fits in where we are right now, so I wanted to drop this in. How do busy business owners fit podcasts into packed schedules? And you just said part of it right there. That's critical. CRM's a great thing. The pages, Excel spreadsheet is a little less functional than pages, I think, right?
Yes. Yeah, you're right. More basic. Yeah.
So how would you answer this young lady here?
So systems in place, like we talked about, that's number one. And then batch record. So here's the thing now. Obviously, if you have a live show, that's different, like what you're doing, Rodd, which is more time consuming and more admirable than, what I would suggest what most podcasters, at least starting off, should do. And that is take one afternoon a month. If you're doing solo episodes, one afternoon a month, if each episode is 25, 30 minutes, hammer out 4 episodes in a couple hours.
Okay.
Streamline the recording, because what you find is you actually build momentum when you're starting to record like back to back. At least this is what happens with me and the clients that I've worked with. You start to build momentum and gain confidence. There's this cost of switching tasks, right? They say that it takes you 20 minutes once you get distracted by something to fully get focused on the thing you were doing in the first place. So there's this cost of switching tasks. So if you were going to record a podcast episode every week or twice a week or whatever, and you carve out time for that, it's actually less efficient than taking one afternoon a month or maybe one full day every few months or whatever the case may be, and just have that be podcast day, podcast afternoon, whatever the case is. Hammer those episodes out, do some light editing, whatever it takes. Do it all while you build momentum, schedule it out, and now you don't have to worry about your podcast for the next month or so. That's how busy entrepreneurs do it without losing their minds, because I could imagine having to do this weekly. You'd lose your mind if you're trying to run a business on the side. And then as a side note, not to be
a business on the side.
A business on the side, right? Yeah. A podcast on the side of a business is what I should say.
Right.
Not to be self-promotional or overly self-promotional, but the other option you do have is to reach out to a professional, hire a professional to do this with you. And that's one way to claim back your time too. Because as entrepreneurs, we can get really busy.
Well, now you're talking about ROI. Now you're bringing the podcast directly into the earliest conversation that we were having about how do you figure ROI? Right. That's an ROI thing, because how much as a business owner, if I was doing I did both for a minute, and that's really why I really started wrapping up my business, because I really wanted to do the podcast way more, but I kept taking away from the business to go do the podcast. And then I'd be angry at the business because I couldn't do the podcast.
Yeah.
And, so what you're saying, the ROI now here, that part of the conversation comes in now, because how much money am I losing by not calling customers about machinery business while I'm doing editing in the because all that stuff. But it's a lot of time and effort to do. Especially in the beginning, you newcomers, especially. Not that I'm not a newcomer. There's so much more. And I do want to talk to you later in the green room after we're done here. Great point here. There's one or two more questions, and then there's some comments I want you to read that I think you'll really like. A couple of them I really dug. But what advice would you give somebody afraid to hear their own voice? Now, I don't know if he's a funny guy, Dennis. That's a great comment. I love that. But I wanted to wait this one towards the end because it's so freaking funny. But it's true. what if you don't like and I've never liked my own voice. I've gotten used to it, but my voice is my moneymaker, so I had to. But that's a great. I mean, it's funny as hell, but is it? I mean, I guess it's true too, right?
It can be, and there's nothing that says that you have to talk the whole podcast episode. In fact, if you don't like your own voice, if you don't feel confident in your voice, I guess one of two things.
Use John's. You hear that voice, guys?
That's a
great voice.
One of two things you could do, right, is you could work on that, and you could, try to build confidence, which is possible, right? Hire a coach, a voice coach, if you want to go that route. The other route is just be extremely inquisitive. Just extremely inquisitive. Bring guests on. Allow them to do most of the talking for you. All the talking you're doing is just natural reactions to, hey, elaborate more about that. Now you're providing valuable content to your audience through somebody else while, minimizing the use of your voice. Now, I hope you'll get more comfortable with your voice too, Dennis, because it's a good skill to have in life, right? We want to be confident. I think it shows through to our potential clients and our clients when we don't like the sound of our own voice, right? That comes through. So it's important to work on getting more confident. But if you don't want to listen to yourself talk for 25 minutes on a solo episode, I don't blame you. Let somebody else do the talking.
That's a good point. Because you can just use a couple of words here and there to get a good guess that knows that you got to set it up before. Hey, look, I want you to do most of the conversation here. I'm just going to bump you every now and then.
Yes.
That's how you got to handle that, right?
Exactly. I mean, sometimes the most profound people are the ones who don't say a lot of words. It's true. Sometimes that's my shortcoming, is that I do 90% of the talking and my wife does 10% of the talking, but that 10% is usually pretty damn good. It's like,
wow, how the hell did you get a wife that only talks 10% of the time? I'm a talker. Oh my goodness. Wow, I'm impressed.
She's too good to me. She's too good.
Itchelle here has a thing she wants you to read out on the air here.
Yeah, John's experience really comes through here. Thank you. Is it Itchelle? I really appreciate it.
I think it's Itchelle. It looks like Itchelle.
Yeah, that's really kind of you to say, and thank you for mentioning that. I feel like I've done this for 7 years, so I hope I've gotten some experience, but the growth and the learning never ends, right?
Yeah, it never does. And for John, I mentioned he's asked a couple of different questions here. One, a question and a comment. Now he's got a comment for you. And
Jeff, you mean, right?
Jeff, yes.
Jeff, yeah.
Jeff. Did I call him John?
Yeah, I'm John. He's Jeff.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. One syllable J words.
There's a J there somewhere.
Jeff chimes in again. Well, Jeff has been active in the chat. He says this makes content feel manageable again. Thank you. That's the whole idea, right? Content is not supposed to be like you wake up in the morning and you're like in this cold sweat of like, what do I put out there today because my audience is expecting something. It's supposed to be manageable. It's supposed to be you record once a month and you're scheduling this stuff out, and then you're just doing light maintenance throughout the month. Manageable is, I like that Jeff used that word, because that's really part of what I do for my clients, right? That's part of the problem I solve is the overwhelm of feeling the need to be everywhere at one time and constantly creating content when you have a business to run.
Yeah, 100%. And Tony came right back, and after you made mention of her comment, why don't you read this?
And yes, she says John's insight on using one conversation for months of content is gold. Well, thank you. That's very kind of you, and I agree.
I don't know if it's months. But
yes, you could. Months would be stretching it out, but I'm gonna also drop my LinkedIn profile there just in case that's the easiest way for people to connect. But yes, months is.
Oh shoot! No, I put that the phone number and the email are there good enough, but unfortunately they came really close together. But yeah, go ahead and finish what you were saying about her, and then let's. It looks like people are starting to kind of get to that point.
Yeah.
2 hours later,
coffee.
2 hours later, dude. 2 hours, man. We're unbelievable. So why don't you do a closing and then wave to everybody. I'll throw you in the green room. Let me do over you left something here, the LinkedIn.
Yeah,
Let me
just
copy
LinkedIn
that.
profile, if that's easier for you. Yes. Yeah. So anyway, Rodd, I can't thank you enough for having me on, man. I don't know if that was intentional throwing me on stage here, but thank you. I will say, if you're looking to get in touch, I'm gonna put one more thing in there, not to make Rodd do all this work, but storytrust.media is
You're making me work too hard, motherfuckers.
sorry. Storytrust.media is where you can find more information about what I do if you're interested in creating a content creation engine for your brand, or if you just have a question. Easiest, fastest way to get in touch is either with like a DM up on LinkedIn, or an email, or even a text message up at my phone number there. Feel free to reach out anytime.
We got your phone number there. Did you did we hit the last point there? I think I got this is correct. There's your
Yes,
LinkedIn.
that is correct. Yes.
And then I got, so what's the difference? That's what I was going to ask. So this one is for the book. What are the two different? So LinkedIn is for the best way to contact you or text you on your phone.
Yes.
I like to get this across because I do get regular comments later on as well from people.
Yes,
So
and there's
I just
actually
want to
no
make sure, what are the different ones there?
no M in front of the storytrust.media there. Just storytrust.media.
Why did
why
did that come in that way?
I put that in right. Yeah. So
Oh no. Why? There is no meat in there. That's wild that even picked it up. Go ahead, finish your
strange.
thing. I'm redoing that one. Sorry.
Yeah, so I know there's several different links here you can use, but bottom line is, if you want to learn more about what I do, head to storytrust.media. If you want to get in touch, then that's where, LinkedIn, connect with me on LinkedIn, or shoot me a text or an email, whatever is easiest for you. And I'd love to get in touch with you and shed some more light on podcasting and how the content creation can help your brand.
All right, fantastic, man. Give everybody a big wave. You had a nice message that obviously a lot of people were very interested in, and I'll see you on the other side. I'll put you in the green room. Stay away from the peanuts.
Thank you.
All right, cool. Hey, I told you, great episode. I've been, I love all these episodes that we do, and the different subjects that we cover, and what we and having the conversations with you, the audience, day in and day out, is honestly, it's a thrill. I mean, it's a blast to do, and it just brings so much to have you all here and doing what we do. So as we start to, it's that time. As we start to land this conversation, I want to slow us down for just a moment, because what Jon shared today wasn't about microphones, platforms, or production tricks. It was about permission, right? Permission to stop chasing, permission to stop feeling behind, and some really awesome points that we went through there. Shows you how to get that completed. Permission to build something sustainable instead of something, frankly, exhausting. One of the themes that kept coming up on this show in particular, if I remember right, as I go back through, whether we're talking about finance, education, leadership, or media, is this: most people don't lack intelligence. I mean, look at the guests we have on here day in and day out. But they do lack space. They, space to think, space to decide, space to speak in their own voice. And that's what audio does when it's done right. That's what I love about it. It gives people room to be human again, not to be perfect, certainly not polished, not packaged for an algorithm, just honest. Jon didn't come here selling a shortcut. He came here, reminding us that consistency doesn't come from pressure. It comes from rhythm, from showing up for real conversations, just like we had here. You saw how he just flowed into, folks, it's not that hard. The hardest thing to do is to start. From letting your lived experience do some of the heavy lifting. Let that be the heavy lifting. From trusting what your voice, your actual voice, it still matters. Trust that. That's a powerful idea in a time when so many people feel invisible. And here's why that matters beyond business. Because when people stop believing their voice matters, they disengage from their work, from their communities, from each other. That's why Insights and Straight Talk exists. The show isn't about volume. It's about signal. It's not about outrage. It's about orientation. It's about helping people, especially families, professionals, and business owners, regain a sense of agency in a world that profits from confusion. That's also why our sponsors matter. Organizations like Mangum City Library, the Regeneration School Project, Voices at the Table, and our partners at Leaf Lab aren't here for branding impressions. They're here because they believe education, conversation, and access, that change still matters. One person, one family, one community at a time. And that only works if people stay engaged. So if tonight's conversation helped you reframe how you think about content, if it gave you permission to simplify, if it reminded you that your story has value, then I want to invite you not to pressure you, but support this work. The most direct way is through our Substack. I mentioned them earlier, insightstraighttalk.substack.com. That's where these conversations continue. That's where we fund independent media without corporate fillers. That's where projects like Voices at the Table get legs beyond a single episode, like we talked about with Jon. No hype, no scripts, no shouting. Well, I do shout sometimes. Just steady, responsible dialogue, week after week, day after day. And before we sign off, I want to thank Jon, not just for his expertise, but for his clarity, because clarity is a form of generosity. So, Jon, thank you for showing up with intention and substance. To everyone watching live, listening later, or catching this somewhere down the road, thank you for being part of this community. This is Insights and Straight Talk. And with that, and producer keeping us honest, but I'm Rodd Duff. You keep us going. We'll see you next time. And with that, after the outro, check something out. I always say something goofy. I'm out.
Before you leave, if you'd like to watch another one of the podcasts, click the first link in the description. We love having you here and we appreciate all your support.
And with that, producer Barbie and I are out. Make it happen.